On the night of my birthday banquet, my husband drank too much, stumbled into the wrong room, and ended up spending the night with my cousin. Desperate, she threatened to take her own life. Believing she was innocent, I suggested to my husband that he take her as a concubine. A few months later, I fell gravely ill. No medicine could cure me. By my sickbed, my husband and my cousin whispered sweet nothings to each other, lost in their affection. Brother Yun, if not for your brilliant plan, she never would have agreed to let me into the household. So, it turned out my husband and my cousin had secretly pledged themselves to each other long before. But because he coveted my father's power, he chose to marry me instead. Now that he had used my family's influence to rise through the ranks, I had become an obstacle he needed to remove so that my cousin could take my place as his legal wife. With a triumphant smile, my husband said, "It was all thanks to the tasteless, scentless poison you found. Mixing it into her sweet soup every day. Now that the poison has taken effect, she will never wake up again. Once she's dead, I'll make you my wife in name and status." When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the night before he had mistakenly spent the night in my cousin's room. After a night of passion, my cousin woke up with a shy smile, only to realize the man lying beside her was not my husband. Her face instantly drained of color. Meanwhile, I smiled and took my husband by the hand, pushing open her door. "My dear wife, today is your birthday banquet. I wish you everlasting youth, and may we celebrate this day for years to come." The burning anger and hatred in my chest suddenly vanished. The dull ache in my heart faded. My mind cleared in an instant, and I abruptly opened my eyes. Beside me, raising his cup in a toast, smiling as he spoke those same well wishes, was my husband, Gu Changyun. "It was all thanks to the tasteless, scentless poison you found. Mixing it into her sweet soup every day. Now that the poison has taken effect, she will never wake up again. Junior, we can finally be together. Once she's dead, I'll make you my wife in name and status." His words from my final moments suddenly echoed in my mind. Looking at his gentle smile, a bone-deep chill ran down my spine. What a deceitful face. Uttering such auspicious words while personally sending me to my death. Wait, wasn't I already dead? Why was I back here, on the night of my birthday banquet, before he had spent the night in Su Longjun's room? "My wife, what's wrong?" Gu Changyun noticed my strange expression and asked with concern. I forced myself to calm down, suppressing my fury and resentment as I mustered a smile. "It's nothing, just feeling a little tired." But the hand resting on the table trembled slightly. The hatred burning inside me was almost unbearable. "Sister Jingrong, I've come to celebrate your birthday." A bright, smiling face approached, the last person I wanted to see. Su Longjun. She had come specially to congratulate me. In my past life, I had cherished the bond we shared as cousins. After Gu Changyun's mistaken night, she had begged for death. Moved by pity and mindful of my family's honor, I had taken the initiative to suggest that he take her as a concubine. After she entered the household, I treated her with kindness and care. Yet she repaid me by poisoning me, one bowl of sweet soup at a time. "Sister, you're not in good health. Have some of this cooling sweet soup. It'll be good for you." With a gentle smile, she handed me the bowl. Touched by her concern, I drank it all, never realizing that it was my death sentence. Now, everything had become clear. This had all been their plan from the very beginning, forcing me to accept her into the household, then getting rid of me so she could take my place. Su Longjun, what a wonderful sister you are. "Sister, my home is far from here. If I return late at night, it would be quite inconvenient. Could you lend me a guest room for the night? I'll leave at dawn." She spoke with the same eagerness as before. Back then, I had no idea that this one-night stay would turn into her never leaving at all. My thoughts raced, but I curved my lips into a smile and nodded. "Of course. I'll prepare the finest guest room for you. Stay as long as you like. There's no rush to leave." Delighted, Su Longjun thanked me, handed her gift to a maid, and returned to her seat. I shifted my gaze slightly and caught sight of Gu Chongyun beside me. He was staring at Su Longjuan's retreating figure, his eyes betraying a hidden longing, the corners of his lips curving ever so slightly in satisfaction. I withdrew my gaze, a mocking smile playing on my lips. Very well. Gu Chongyun, Su Longjun, my beloved husband and dear cousin. You thought you could deceive me. But heaven has granted me a second chance, letting me see your treachery clearly and sending me back to the very moment it all began. This time, neither of you will have your way. As the banquet came to an end, all the guests, except for Su Longjun, who had found an excuse to stay overnight at the Gu residence, bid their farewells. I noticed that although Gu Chongyun was still smiling and chatting with the departing guests, a hint of impatience had already surfaced in his eyes. I knew that soon enough, he would follow through with the plan he had arranged with Su Longjun, getting drunk and mistakenly entering her room. Once the guests had left, Gu Chongyun turned to me with a gentle smile and said, "It's already late, my dear. Though you've enjoyed yourself tonight, you must be exhausted. Why don't you retire early? Rest early? So that you can go meet Su Longjun and spend the night with her?" I sneered inwardly, but showed nothing on my face. Instead, I picked up the cup of wine that Ingqiu had just handed me and coyly said, "Husband, I'm especially happy today. Won't you share one more drink with me?" Seeing me like this, Gu Chongyun naturally couldn't refuse. He took the cup, clinked it against mine, and drank it all in one go. "Husband, I'll head back to rest first," I said with a smile, watching as he swallowed the wine. Then I turned and left. Not long after I had walked toward the main courtyard, Ingqiu hurried over and reported, "Miss, as soon as you left, the young master rushed toward the guest quarters just as you predicted. However, he barely took a few steps before he collapsed." I curled my lips into a smirk. "Ingqiu, the drug you found works well, mixed into the wine, and it took effect so quickly." Ingqiu wiped a bit of sweat from her forehead, looking slightly nervous. "It's just a common knockout powder. But, miss, what do you plan to do next?" "Have some servants carry him to the side room," I said with a cold laugh. But then, I remembered he was supposed to embrace Su Longjun tonight. Just thinking about it made me feel he was filthy. Forget it. Move him to the guest room instead. When he wakes up tomorrow, tell him he passed out on the roadside, and his servants, fearing he disturbed my rest, carried him there. Ingqiu acknowledged the order and left. I glanced in the direction of the guest quarters. The place was pitch black. Su Longjun had likely already extinguished the lights, waiting joyfully for Gu Chongyun to join her and rekindle their love. Too bad. Tomorrow, I'll give Gu Chongyun quite a show. I wonder if his perpetually weak body will be able to handle the shock. "Longjun, it's time for breakfast," I called out cheerfully, pushing open the door to Su Longjun's guest room. The sight before me made me gasp in exaggerated shock. "Ah, Longjun. What is going on here?" Morning light streamed into the dark room, causing Su Longjun to squint. She cleared her throat delicately, about to greet me with her usual sweet voice, when her gaze shifted slightly, and she froze in horror. Because lying beside her was not my husband, Gu Chongyun. And in her plan, the man who should have been in bed with her was now rushing in from behind, having heard my startled cry. Gu Chongyun stepped inside with urgency, only to be greeted by an utterly scandalous scene. Su Longjuan's hair was disheveled, her clothes barely covering her, and her face was flushed. Beside her, a man lay sprawled out, completely naked. Su Longjun. Even with Gu Chongyun's usual composure, his rage exploded in that instant. He forgot my presence entirely, shouting furiously as he stormed toward the bed. "You dare to bring another man into my residence? Yun, brother-in-law, please listen to me." Su Longjuan's voice trembled with tears, but she swallowed back the brother Yun she usually called him, remembering that I was still at the doorway. Gu Chongyun's eyes burned red with fury. "That man is right beside you. What is there to explain?" Panic flashed across Su Longjuan's face, but she quickly steeled herself. She pointed at the man beside her and sobbed, "I don't even know him. When I woke up, He was just suddenly here. Brother-in-law, you have to believe me. Seeing Gu Changyun's frown deepen, she immediately swore. Brother-in-law, nothing happened between us. I am still innocent. You must stand up for me. The man beside her, who had been sleeping soundly, was now groggily waking up, his face still dazed. Upon hearing Su Longjun's desperate plea, he suddenly turned and glared at her, furious. Su Longjun, weren't you the one who sent a servant to call for me last night? You said you'd been thinking of me for a long time and invited me to meet you here. When I arrived, you threw yourself into my arms. Have you already forgotten? And now that he's here, you're pretending you don't know me? His words sent shockwaves through the room. Gu Changyun's face turned completely black, his expression as dark as a storm. He stared at Su Longjun, who was now shaking uncontrollably, his voice laced with icy fury. Su Longjun, you had better explain who this man is. Standing to the side, watching the show unfold, I couldn't help but smile to myself. I knew exactly who this man was. After all, I was the one who had lured Su Longjun's secret lover here, under her own name. In my previous life, I once accidentally witnessed the secret interactions between Su Longjun and a man named Zhang Tan. Zhang Tan was a student of Su Longjun's father, Scholar Su. He had only recently passed the provincial examination and, having studied in Scholar Su's private school, became acquainted with Su Longjun. After Gu Changyun and I got married, Su Longjun grew lonely. Although she knew Gu Changyun had his own reasons for marrying me, she still resented his unfaithfulness. Meanwhile, Zhang Tan was captivated by Su Longjun's beauty and pursued her actively. Over time, she gave in and they became entangled. In my past life, even after Su Longjun achieved her wish of entering the Gu residence as Gu Changyun's concubine, she continued her clandestine relationship with Zhang Tan. Since Zhang Tan repeatedly failed the imperial examinations, Su Longjun often used her allowance to support him, urging him to focus on his studies. She was caught between two men. On one side, rekindling old affections with Gu Changyun, and on the other, unwilling to let go of Zhang Tan. Perhaps, to her, what she couldn't fully have was always the most desirable. When I first stumbled upon their secret affair, Su Longjun knelt before me, tearfully begging me to keep it confidential. She swore that she would never see Zhang Tan again. Sister, I am your younger sister. If my momentary lapse ruins my own reputation, so be it. But think of the Su family, so many unmarried women in our clan. If my scandal affects them, even 1,000 deaths would not be enough for me to atone. Thinking of the Su family's honor, I reluctantly agreed to keep her secret. After that, I never knew whether she truly cut ties with Zhang Tan because, soon after, my health began to deteriorate rapidly, like a candle burning out. Upon my rebirth, I suddenly recalled this past event. Su Longjun had often sent me sweet soups, claiming they were to help me recover. That must have been the time she truly decided to kill me. She feared that one day, I might expose her past to Gu Changyun. And only a dead person could keep a secret. In this life, as a dead woman who has returned with her secret, I intend to use this knowledge well. During the banquet, I had Ingqiu disguise herself with a veil and pose as a maid delivering a message from Su Longjun. She then went to Scholar Su's private school outside the capital and found Zhang Tan. Miss said that since she is attending the banquet at the Gu residence today, she cannot meet with you, she relayed. However, she has made arrangements. If young Master Zhang poses as a servant delivering a congratulatory gift, he will be able to enter the Gu residence. Miss is waiting for you in the guest room after the gift is delivered. Wanting to avoid drawing suspicion, Su Longjun extinguished her lamps early, waiting eagerly for Gu Changyun's arrival. In the darkness, Zhang Tan stumbled into the room, and Su Longjun welcomed him enthusiastically, only to realize, too late, that the person she had embraced was not Gu Changyun at all. When she later tried to sever ties with Zhang Tan in a panic, he, enraged by her betrayal, revealed everything, their past relationship and how she had personally invited him to meet her the night before. Gu Chongyun knew that when he had stormed into the guest room in front of me earlier, he had already lost his composure. Now, he sat in a wooden chair, struggling to suppress his fury. But the way he glared at Su Longjun, his eyes ablaze with anger, made it seem as though he wanted to burn her alive. Su Longjun kept insisting that she was innocent, but she had no way to prove it. She couldn't even find the maid who had delivered the message. With no witness, all she could do was cry helplessly in my direction. "Sister Jingrong, I swear I don't know this man. Please help me." She clung to her lie, refusing to admit she knew Zhang Tan. But Zhang Tan had had enough. With a loud slap, he struck her across the face. "Wretched woman! You were the one who lured me here, and now you act like you don't know me? Zhang Tan, why you dare hit me?" Su Longjun clutched her reddened cheek, her lips trembling in fury as she lunged at him, clawing and scratching in a frenzy. I watched them struggle for a while before finally raising my voice. "Enough. Separate them. What kind of behavior is this?" Then, I turned to Gu Chongyun, who looked as though he might faint from sheer anger, and gently asked, "Husband, since Longjun calls you brother-in-law, and you are the head of this household, tell me, how should this matter be handled?" If he wanted to protect Su Longjun, there were certainly ways to do so. He could simply silence Zhang Tan and any servants who knew of the affair. Zhang Tan was just a penniless scholar. If Gu Chongyun wanted to shut him up, it wouldn't be difficult. But instead, Gu Chongyun cast a chilling glance at the disheveled Su Longjun and declared in a low voice, "To preserve my wife's and the Su family's honor, there is only one solution. Su Longjun must marry Zhang Tan." "Brother-in-law." Hearing this, Su Longjun cried out in shock, looking at Gu Chongyun in disbelief. But Gu Chongyun refused to look at her and instead turned his gaze to me, speaking with certainty. "This matter concerns the reputation of the women in the Su family. As your husband, I believe we must handle it prudently. Besides, since the two of them are mutually affectionate and well-matched in status, given the circumstances, it would be best to arrange their marriage." "Brother Yun." Su Longjun lost her composure and called out to him, trying to move him with their past affection. "Brother Yun, can you really bear to treat me this way?" Gu Chongyun, however, replied coldly, "Su Longjun, you and I were never acquainted. Out of kindness, I allowed you to stay in the Gu residence because you are my wife's younger sister. Yet you repaid my generosity with such disgraceful conduct in my home. Now, for the sake of Jingrong, I am considering your reputation and offering you the best solution, to marry Zhang Tan. This is already the utmost mercy I can grant you." His gaze locked onto Su Longjun's stunned face. "Do not utter another word that oversteps your bounds." His eyes carried a chilling warning. With that, he let out a cold snort, as if too enraged to continue, and stormed off. Realizing she could no longer rely on Gu Chongyun, Su Longjun turned to me with desperation in her eyes. "Sister Jingrong, I don't want to marry Zhang Tan. Please, Sister Jingrong, I beg you." Nearby, Zhang Tan was in the middle of examining a porcelain teacup, marveling at its craftsmanship while sipping his tea. The moment he heard Su Longjun's plea, his expression darkened. Setting down the cup, he cupped his hands toward me and said, "Madam Gu, though I bear the title of scholar, I am but a commoner. It seems I am not worthy of your esteemed sister." I let out a long sigh, walked to Su Longjun's side, helped her up, and gently held her hand. Suppressing my delight, I spoke slowly. "Longjun, your brother-in-law is right. If word of this spreads, it won't just be you, your entire family will be affected as well. At this point, the only way to preserve your reputation is for you to marry Zhang Tan. That is the only solution." I then turned to Zhang Tan and spoke in a soothing tone. "Since you say that you and Longjun have long had feelings for each other, this marriage is but a natural conclusion. My husband and I will prepare her dowry, 200 taels of silver and 2 storefronts. How about that?" Hearing about the dowry, Zhang Tan's eyes flickered, and all traces of displeasure vanished from his face. He immediately grabbed Su Longjun and bowed repeatedly in gratitude. Thank you, Madame Gu, for your great kindness. Su Longjun, however, shut her eyes and collapsed straight to the ground in a faint. I sneered inwardly. Even if she fainted, Gu Chongyun likely wouldn't feel a shred of sympathy for her anymore. Sure enough, she remained bedridden for 7 days, but Gu Chongyun never visited her even once. By the time she recovered, Zhang Tan had already taken the silver I had secretly given him and finalized the marriage arrangements with Su Xiaozai. Dressed in a wedding robe, he arrived at the Gu residence with a small bridal sedan and a few musicians, ready to take Su Longjun as his wife. When Su Longjun heard that Zhang Tan had arrived, she immediately abandoned her sickly pretense and disappeared without a trace. Ingqiu soon reported to me that someone had seen her heading toward Gu Chongyun's study. I took a sip of my tea, smiling faintly. Go entertain Zhang Tan properly. Tell him Longjun will be along shortly. Sure enough, less than half an hour later, one of Gu Chongyun's servants appeared in the front courtyard, half dragging Su Longjun with him. Madam, the master has said that since the marriage is settled, you should personally send Miss Su off from the Gu residence. The servant respectfully presented Su Longjun before me. She, however, looked ashen, utterly devastated. I figured she must have met nothing but cold rejection from Gu Chongyun just now. Feigning a smile, I agreed and took Su Longjun's hand. She seemed numb with grief, moving like a lifeless puppet as I led her forward. Longjun, since your uncle has approved this marriage, you should embrace it. I wish you and Zhang Tan a lifetime of harmony and mutual devotion. Zhang Tan, overjoyed, thanked me profusely and forcefully pulled the weak and unresisting Su Longjun into the bridal sedan. I watched as the small sedan was carried away. From the distance, the sporadic sounds of Swona horns drifted over. The corners of my lips curled into a cold smile. Su Longjun, what a humiliating marriage this is for you. She once had ambitions as high as the heavens, yet now, because of her disgraceful conduct, she was forced to wed a man of humble birth. And given how much she despised Zhang Tan, she had likely already provoked his ire. In my past life, when I overheard them meeting in secret at the Gu residence, Zhang Tan had not only reminisced about their past but had also begged her for money to pay off his gambling debts. Her good days were only just beginning. Thinking of the sweet lotus seed soup she had sent me daily in my past life and the pain I endured before my death, I felt nothing but satisfaction. Then I turned my gaze toward the study. Gu Chongyun was still there. Su Longjun had received her retribution. Now it was his turn. Husband. I smiled as I handed a bowl of white fungus and lotus seed soup to Gu Chongyun. I made this sweet soup myself. It has heat-clearing properties. Since you've been busy with government affairs, you should drink more of it. It's good for your health. Lately, Gu Chongyun had been coming and going mysteriously, as if hiding something from me. But he didn't need to. During my visit home, I had already learned the truth from my father. Lately, he had been getting close to the crown prince and seemed to have gained his favor. That husband of yours may still hold the position of a Longzhong in the Ministry of Personnel, but he no longer listens to me as he once did. I wouldn't be surprised if he's promoted to Shiling soon, or even to Shangshu in the near future. My father sighed. I've warned him before, taking sides in politics is the gravest mistake an official can make. Although the emperor appointed the crown prince out of respect for the late empress, the first prince and third prince both have strong backing, and their maternal families are powerful. But he ignored my warnings. One day, he will regret it. A thought crossed my mind. Relying on my memory, I described the poison Su Longjun had once used on me and asked Ingqiu to find it. Following my command, Ingqiu utilized the resources my father had assigned to me and managed to locate the long-lost poison formula. The poison was called Ultimate Flavor. It was colorless and tasteless, a slow-acting toxin. Its unique property was that consuming a small amount caused no harm. But if taken frequently, it would gradually infiltrate the lungs, becoming incurable. Gu Chongyun took a sip of the sweet soup. I watched him with a smile, then casually brought up a story. I once heard a tale. In the previous dynasty, there was a household with a wife and a concubine. The concubine, favored by the husband, coveted the position of the main wife and went to great lengths to eliminate her. Gu Chongyun raised an eyebrow, showing interest. And? What did she do? She used this white fungus and lotus seed soup. I pointed to the bowl in his hands, smiling. The concubine obtained a colorless and tasteless poison called ultimate flavor. Its toxicity was so subtle that even silver chopsticks wouldn't react to it. A small dose had no effect, but when taken continuously, it seeped into the lungs, becoming untreatable. Eventually, the victim withered away like an oil lamp running dry. She secretly poisoned the sweet soup every day and served it to the main wife. In the end, the wife died, and the concubine took her place. I lifted a piece of oil paper and chuckled. I was bored and found the story rather intriguing, so I sought out the poison's formula for amusement. Gu Chongyun frowned, seemingly deep in thought. After a while, a strange smile curved his lips. "Wrong, that is an interesting tale. May I take a look at the formula?" I observed his expression carefully. After 3 years of marriage, I knew him well. He was already memorizing the recipe in his mind. I had achieved my goal. In my past life, during my illness, I had once overheard Ingqiu and the others discussing a matter. The crown prince, fearing for his position, had attempted to assassinate the emperor. However, the plan was too hastily executed, and he failed. He was captured on the spot, stripped of his title, and imprisoned for life. Since the crown prince harbored intentions of regicide, and since Gu Chongyun had drawn so close to him, he was surely aligned with him. Now, I had personally delivered to him the very poison Su Longjun had discovered, a flawless weapon for assassination. I told my story with a calm expression, as if it were mere idle chatter, because I wanted to drag Gu Chongyun into the abyss. I carefully selected a few of my father's men and ordered them to keep a close watch on Gu Chongyun's every move. Sure enough, within days, he visited numerous pharmacies and even sought out foreign merchants to gather the ingredients for the poison. After half a month of effort, he finally obtained them all. In my past life, Su Longjun alone might not have been able to piece together this formula. Gu Chongyun must have contributed. The thought twisted my heart with pain. The pain grew so intense that I suffered from sleepless nights, needing Ingqiu by my side just to fall asleep. The more my heart ached, the stronger my desire for revenge became. A few days later, my father sent a letter summoning me home. "Wrong, you were right. When I was in Changchun Hall reporting to His Majesty, I noticed a bowl of sweet soup on his desk. I casually asked about it, and he mentioned that the crown prince had sent it as a gesture of filial piety and even offered to serve me a bowl. I immediately pleaded with my father to take me to the palace to see the emperor. My father's face paled in shock. "Wrong, just because I saw a bowl of sweet soup, you want me to risk bringing you into the palace? Why? This matter is of utmost importance. For your sake, for the sake of the Su family, I must see His Majesty." Though my father was skeptical, he saw the determination in my eyes and finally agreed. The next day happened to be a court recess. Gu Chongyun was not at home. He had left early, most likely to meet the crown prince. I left the residence under the pretense of visiting a friend, but instead returned to the Su manor. I disguised myself as a male servant and entered the palace with my father. On the way, my father looked at me with worry. "Wrong, are you sure about this? You do realize that smuggling someone into the palace is a crime punishable by death?" I squeezed his hand and smiled. "Father, trust me. I won't let you down. Your humble servant greets Your Majesty. Long live the Emperor." My father bowed respectfully. Keeping my head lowered, I followed behind him, but my eyes had already locked onto the bowl of sweet soup on the emperor's desk. Sure enough, the emperor was pleased with the crown prince's filial gesture and was enjoying the soup. "Rise, Minister Su. It is a day of rest. What urgent matter brings you here?" The emperor's expression was calm, his sharp eyes studying my father. I took a deep breath, stepped forward, and knelt. This humble woman, Su, is the eldest daughter of Minister Su and the wife of Gu Chongyun of the Ministry of Personnel. I have an urgent matter to report. Please forgive my father for deceiving your majesty. The emperor's gaze fell on me, first puzzled, then gradually realizing something. His expression darkened. You disguised yourself as Minister Su's servant to enter the palace. If you do not have a reasonable explanation, I will hold the Su family accountable. I raised my hand and pointed at the sweet soup. Your Majesty, that white fungus and lotus seed soup is poison. The emperor furrowed his brows tightly, his voice filled with deep anger. Every day, I have a food taster eunuch sample my meals. Only after confirming it's safe do I eat. Are you not speaking utter nonsense? My father cast a slightly apprehensive glance at me, but I remained unafraid and calmly replied, Your Majesty, this poison is unique. Its toxicity is mild, so consuming a small amount poses no immediate harm. But if one drinks a large quantity, it will infiltrate the internal organs. One day, no medicine will be able to save them. The emperor stood up, his gaze filled with authority. Do you have any evidence? I respectfully responded, Your Majesty, if this poison is mixed into a sweet soup, consuming a small amount won't kill. But Your Majesty may test it on another living being, perhaps a civet cat or a bird. The emperor stared at me for a moment, then turned to instruct the eunuch at his side. Go and fetch a bird. The eunuch took his orders and soon returned with a bird covered in vibrant green feathers. Scooping up a spoonful of the sweet soup, the eunuch fed it to the bird. After just a few sips, the bird tilted its head, collapsed in the eunuch's palm, and never got up again. This time, everyone present turned solemn. In a fit of rage, the emperor swept the bowl of tremolo lotus seed soup onto the floor. Unfilial son. The emperor took deep breaths, forcing himself to calm down, but his brows remained tightly furrowed as he looked at me. This soup was a token of filial piety from the crown prince. He has no dealings with you. How did you know it was poisoned? Lowering my head, I replied firmly, because both the poison and the method of administering it were schemes offered to the crown prince by my husband. Since the soup came from the crown prince, the emperor had never summoned the imperial physicians to inspect it before. This time, however, he specifically ordered the head physician to examine it. After a brief test, the physician confirmed that the soup contained a faint trace of poison. He then took the emperor's pulse and, after a long pause, let out a breath of relief. Fortunately, Your Majesty has not consumed much. With a few acupuncture treatments, this humble servant can expel the poison. At this, the emperor's fury surged. Such audacity. He is not my only son, yet he dares to harm me in this way. He ordered the crown prince and Gu Chongyun to be brought to the palace in chains. Unfilial son. How have I treated you, yet you would present me with poisoned soup? The emperor pointed at the crown prince with a trembling hand, his eyes filled with wrath. The crown prince turned his gaze toward Gu Chongyun, who knelt beside him, trembling. His eyes brimmed with hatred, as if he wished to tear him apart. Father, I was foolish, but I knew nothing about this. Gritting his teeth, he pointed at the cowering Gu Chongyun. It was this wretch. He told me to offer you sweet soup as a gesture of filial piety, but I had no idea he had poisoned it. The crown prince was quick-witted. He refused to admit guilt and instead pinned the crime on Gu Chongyun. But his excuse was weak. Gu Chongyun was merely a low-ranking official from the Ministry of Personnel, a mere guest under the crown prince's patronage. The sweet soup had come from the Eastern Palace. Without the crown prince's approval, who could have tampered with it? Naturally, the emperor did not believe him. His gaze, now carrying a murderous edge, shifted between the crown prince and Gu Chongyun. Crown prince, I may be old, but I am not senile. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Gu Chongyun looking at me. He was not foolish. In that brief moment, he seemed to have figured it all out. Why my father and I had appeared at Changchun Palace, and how his plan to poison the emperor had been exposed so quickly. Hatred quickly filled his gaze. I merely crossed my arms and smiled at him. He clenched his teeth, then suddenly pointed at my father. Your Majesty, I have something to confess. It was all Minister Su's doing, It has nothing to do with me. Su Shishuan is my father-in-law. He has long been dissatisfied with his position as Minister of Personnel and has always wanted to enter the Grand Secretariat. That's why he ordered me to get close to the Crown Prince and serve as his strategist. Gu Chongyun, like a cornered dog, bit wildly in all directions. But he seemed to forget that the reason he had secured the prestigious rank of 5th-grade official at such a young age was solely due to my father's support. Back then, he had lodged at Scholar Su's residence, growing up alongside Su Lanjun, my cousin, like childhood sweethearts. They had even privately pledged themselves to each other. However, he knew that marrying the daughter of an old scholar would do little for his future. It just so happened that Su Lanjun often spoke enviously of her cousin me and of my father, the Minister of Personnel. Greedy for my father's power, Gu Chongyun had Su Lanjun and her father introduce him. Then, he found every opportunity to prove his worth in front of my father. My father valued him greatly, praising his intelligence and courage, and eventually took him as his confidant, even entrusting me to him in marriage. It was only later that I realized he had never seen me as his wife. To him, I and the entire Su family were nothing more than stepping stones to his rise. And stepping stones could be discarded at will. This time, too, it was his idea. He said that once Your Majesty passed, the Crown Prince would ascend the throne and naturally remember the Su family's kindness, allowing us to rise effortlessly. The Emperor's heavy gaze turned to my father. Minister Su, is this true? My father trembled as he knelt, his voice quivering. Your Majesty, please see clearly. I have always been loyal to Your Majesty and would never dare such a thing. Gu Chongyun was clever enough to know that simply accusing me of tricking him into poisoning the Emperor was too absurd to stand. So instead, he dragged my father down with him, hoping to take the entire Su family down. At this moment, he lifted his head again and shouted at my father. Father-in-law, have you forgotten your own words and deeds? You said His Majesty is unfit to rule, that he promotes sycophants and suppresses loyal ministers. You complained that you should have entered the Grand Secretariat long ago, but were instead stuck in a lowly ministerial position. You even called His Majesty incompetent and unworthy of the throne. Have you forgotten? My father ignored him, only kowtowing desperately before the Emperor. Your Majesty, please see the truth. I swear my loyalty to you. But the Emperor's gaze remained fixed on him, filled with suspicion. After a long silence, the Emperor finally spoke in a deep voice. Men, help Minister Su to his feet, and seize Gu Chongyun immediately. Gu Chongyun was initially smug when he saw the Emperor staring at my father, but now his face was filled with disbelief. Your Majesty, what did you just say? The Emperor's gaze was full of disdain. Minister Su has always been loyal to me, constantly concerned about my health, and always considering my well-being. Not only does he inquire after me daily, but even regarding this bowl of sweet soup. He gestured toward the shattered remains of the bowl on the floor. He merely noticed that I have a fondness for sweets and had a few extra sips. Out of concern, he advised me to eat fewer sweet things, reminding me that I am getting older and my health is not what it used to be. A minister so devoted, why would I suspect him just because of a few slanderous words from you? Your Majesty, my father, helped up by the eunuch, was so moved that tears streamed down his face. The treasonous words you just spoke, perhaps they are what you, or even the Crown Prince, truly wished to say? The Emperor's gaze swept over both of them, dark and menacing. Guards, take the Crown Prince and Gu Chongyun into the Imperial prison. I will interrogate them myself. I stepped forward to support my father and watched as Gu Chongyun was dragged away by several strong guards. Even from a distance, his hateful gaze remained fixed on me. I recalled my past life, how he had once clung to Su Lanjun at my bedside. Comparing that memory to his current miserable state, I could no longer hold back my laughter. The Emperor soon uncovered the origins of Gu Chongyun's poison, as well as the secret dealings and conspiracies between him and the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince was stripped of his title and reduced to a commoner, sentenced to lifelong confinement in the palace's criminals' quarters. Gu Chongyun, lacking royal blood, was not so fortunate. He was thrown into the imperial prison and sentenced to be executed in a month. His entire family was implicated. Anyone related to him was punished. Even his 70-year-old mother, who had been living in the countryside, was sentenced to exile in the frigid northern lands. As for me, I was rewarded for my meritorious report. The emperor not only granted me a divorce from Gu Chongyun but also bestowed upon me the noble title of County Princess Qingyun. I was given an estate and a stipend, and if I were to marry again, the imperial family would provide a dowry. I had planned to visit Gu Chongyun in prison before his execution. To put it bluntly, I was eager to witness his downfall in person. However, before I could act, Su Lanjun came to find me. She was dressed in simple cloth garments, her hair unkempt, her face devoid of makeup, and dark circles heavy under her eyes. What was even more shocking were the bloody whip marks on her exposed arms. Zhang Tan had only married Su Lanjun for her dowry. After their marriage, he abused her relentlessly, frequently beating her and wasting his days away in gambling dens and pleasure houses. She lifted her inner garments, revealing a back covered in scars, both fresh and old. He squandered all the household money on gambling and liquor, then forced me to work, scrubbing clothes for others. If I refused, he whipped me and forced me out. Tears streamed down her face as she spoke. A few days ago, he said I wasn't earning enough, so he told me to sell my body to make more money. Sister Jingrong, I am from a respectable family. How could I do such a thing? Despite the lingering resentment in my heart for how she had treated me in my past life, in this one, she had done me no harm. Seeing her in such a pitiful state, I softened. I allowed her to stay at the Su residence for the time being, provided her with money, and called for a physician to treat her wounds. If you no longer wish to return to Zhangtan, I will arrange for your divorce. A few days later, when I was preparing to visit Gu Chongyun in prison, Su Lanjun begged to come along. In the end, we are still family. Let me accompany you to bid my brother-in-law farewell. Her gaze was filled with determination. I assumed she only wanted to see Gu Chongyun one last time to put her feelings to rest, so I agreed. Little did I expect that she was planning to perish alongside him. After bribing the prison guards, Su Lanwan and I arrived outside Gu Chongyun's cell. He lay in the pile of straw, filthy and disheveled, constantly scratching his back, probably infested with lice. Seeing me, he grabbed the iron bars and roared, "Su Jingrong, why are you here? Come to laugh at me." I smiled and nodded. Yes. He gritted his teeth in hatred and cursed, "Su Jingrong, you venomous woman. I fell into your trap. It was your deceitful words that ruined me." I curled my lips into a mocking smile and said, "At least you're not entirely stupid." Still clutching the bars, his voice trembled as he asked, "Su Jingrong, why?" We were husband and wife for 3 years. Even if only for a day, a husband and wife should have some affection. Why did you scheme against me and report me to His Majesty? I sneered. If you had no treacherous intentions, how could a few words from me lead you to commit such crimes? Gu Chongyun, the one who ruined you was yourself. Gu Chongyun clenched his teeth, slamming the bars violently. Su Jingrong, you wretched woman. Even if I die, I'll become a ghost and drag you to hell with me. I glanced at Su Lanwan, who was disguised as my maid and standing behind me with her head lowered. With a mocking tone, I said, "The one heading to hell should be you. You know exactly how you married me, what the Su family did for you, and what despicable schemes you and Su Lanwan plotted against me, don't you?" Only then did he notice Su Lanwan, his eyes widening in shock. "Su Jingrong, you knew?" Tortured by guilt, Su Lanwan had confessed everything to me yesterday. Not that it mattered. Having lived through one lifetime already, I had always known. Her confession only filled in a few missing details. "Brother Yun, it feels so good to finally say it out loud," she said, stepping into the cell. She took a plate of side dishes and a cup of wine from her basket and placed them on the straw. "Brother Yun, you once promised me a lifetime together. You said that after passing the imperial exam and becoming an official, you would come and marry me. As she poured the wine, her smile was filled with bitterness. I know my background was humble, and it was natural for you to choose Jingrong. Later, when we plotted against her, we were in the wrong. I married Zhang Tan and suffered all this hardship. It was my punishment. She raised the cup and handed it to Gu Chongyun. But today is likely the last time we will meet. Could you drink a nuptial toast with me and make up for my regrets? Gu Chongyun scoffed, took the cup, and drank it in one gulp, completely ignoring Su Lonjuan's outstretched hand. Drink if you want, but what nonsense about a nuptial toast. Go find Zhang Tan for that. You still won't forgive me, Brother Yun? Su Lonjuan let out a self-deprecating laugh, then raised her own cup and drank. At that moment, Gu Chongyun's face twisted in pain, and dark red blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. He touched his lips and stared in horror at the blood on his fingers. Turning towards Su Lonjuan, he roared, "Su Lonjuan, you poisoned the wine." Blood also trickled from Su Lonjuan's lips. She gave him a sorrowful yet mocking smile. Brother Yun, do you know how miserable my life was after marrying Zhang Tan? I begged you not to send me to him, pleaded with you to let me stay. But despite all our years together, you forced me to marry him anyway. She clutched her stomach, wincing in pain, but there was still a smile on her lips. From the first day I married that monster, I no longer wanted to live. Brother Yun, since we couldn't be together in life, let's die together. I sighed softly. No wonder she had refused my offer to help her divorce Zhang Tan. No wonder she insisted on bringing food to Gu Chongyun. She had planned this all along. Yesterday, she had even gone to see her ailing father, her final farewell. Su Lonjuan, you cursed woman. You won't die in peace. Gu Chongyun, barely breathing, used the last of his strength to clutch Su Lonjuan's throat. But she only smiled radiantly at him. Brother Yun, if I can die with you, even if it means going to hell, I am willing. Gu Chongyun soon lost his strength, his hand falling away as he collapsed onto the straw. Su Lonjuan lay beside him, her expression finally at peace. This is good. I quietly watched as the two of them lay lifeless on the ground. I called the guards and explained the situation. They would handle their bodies. Stepping out of the prison, I looked up at the sky. The dark clouds had parted, revealing golden sunlight. I broke into a wide smile. Gu Chongyun was dead. Su Lonjuan was dead. And the Qingyun County Lord's residence granted by the Emperor was nearly complete. I would be able to move in soon. His Majesty had promoted my father to Assistant Minister of the Court of Justice and conferred upon him the title of a third-rank marquis, rewarding his loyalty. The storm had passed. Ahead of me, nothing but bright days to come. The end.